For those that are attending, this is the zoning subcommittee on Crescent Street to review, basically continue the review of Crescent Street. Amy, you want to read the notice?
Yes, hang on one second while I pull it up. Did that come from Gail or from Sherry? Gail, right?
Gail.
Okay. Bear with me. Okay.
Hey, Brian, you got lights on in your office? Can't see, I can see glasses.
He's hiding.
Okay, I'm just asking. All right, I'm gonna mute.
Okay, I have it. Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and/or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following link. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 913-5964. 50848, passcode 820148. Please only use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. 1, call to order and roll call. 2, 21-37 Crescent Commons Development LLC, 44, 46, and 48 Crescent Street. Zoning Board Subcommittee will meet to discuss, oh, am I reading the agenda? To meet and discuss the architecture and traffic, and then 3, adjourn. I guess that's not the legal notice, but the top of it was, right, Jim?
Yeah, that's all
The
you
top
need.
of it was,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
It's discussed, it still says discuss architecture and traffic.
okay,
So we do have Lieutenant Anderson here, so if we need to get into anything with him or any questions, and certainly I assume there's been some changes since June 14th, hopefully. With that, I might mention Amy Wall and myself, Jim McBain, our board members, basically, and I will be running this meeting. This is only between basically the candidate, his attorney, and ourselves. Everybody else is here to listen. If they want to comment, they can always comment at the next board meeting with anything they've heard here. Perfectly welcome to do that. So with that, I might meant that the first meeting basically was on architecture and to some degree on size as well, and change the design basically at that time. The second meeting, which was on 6/14, was ringing around basically deliveries, trash, access, handicap parking, street crossings, and the like. So, and there were a bunch of comments basically made about the areas where these were planned, about access by handicapped people to basically pick up delivery packages or bring their trash, as well as park. And there was also further conversation about the height of the building in relationship to removing some of the additional units up there to make this building basically a little bit lower and fit better into the community in that area. So with that, Brian said, I guess I'd like to see what's been going on for the last month or so. Wake Brian up, somebody.
Brian,
Didn't realize I was on mute. Sorry about that, Mr. McBain.
Turn the lights on.
Yeah, I'm here. For the record, Brian McGreal representing the applicant, Crescent Commons. With us is Peter Sandors, our architect, Rick Salvo, site civil engineer, and Joe and Steve Bocelli are also on this Zoom meeting. So, Mr. McBain, I think it was very well stated, kind of where we were and where we're, where we are now, where we're trying to go. I would like to say that we look at this as a working session. with your committee, and we're very glad that Lieutenant Anderson is on, because I think we're going to talk about some adjustments to the plans that were also a concern for the Traffic Advisory Committee, for which he is chair of. So I'm sure he'll be interested in maybe provide some input on some possible changes. The reason I call it possible changes is this is kind of, this is, again, a working session. So we want to, our goal is to float our ideas by you. We don't put anything solidly on the table right now. We're willing to at the right time in what we're going to show you today, but it involves a further reduction of units to try to address the goals and concerns of your subcommittee, traffic advisory, and I think from the message we've gotten from the full board. So, if we get some positive feedback from you, I think we're willing to make these changes formal submittals to the entire board. So where we were before was we originally had filed at 56 units. We reduced it to 45 to address the parking concerns that were raised by traffic advisory because we did not meet the parking requirements under zoning. We were looking for a waiver on that. By reducing it to 45 units, we were able to meet the parking space number requirements under our bylaw. I think it was a request of the Traffic Advisory Committee to try to get better than that, to provide some additional parking beyond what is required, which is, not really the norm. But we hear, and as we said from the beginning, we're trying to address concerns and work cooperatively. And then we also, from your subcommittee, heard the concerns on the architectural aspect of the building. Mr. McBain, one in particular part of it, the upper floor on the right side as you face the building from Crescent Street, on how that will look and the impact on that particular part of the building. So we heard you on that. And then at the last meeting, we also talked about our plans for deliveries and for trash removal. And the subcommittee pointed out to us that design was coming off of Crescent Hill. And your committee raised some concerns as to the adequacy of the size, the location, and the handicap accessibility. And it was also raised by the Traffic Advisory Committee, the concerns with putting, some strain on Crescent Hill, if you will, for those services. So what we want to show you in the working session today are some possible changes that we think address all of those concerns. And those changes would involve a further reduction in units from 45 down to 42 units. And what that allows us to do is it allows Peter to make an adjustment on the massing of the building on the top right-hand side that was raised by you and Amy during our prior meetings. And Peter will talk to you about that. And it also allows us to make some adjustments to parking that actually now what we're proposing, would be providing 70 parking spaces as we had before, but now only 66 would be required pursuant to zoning. So we would actually have 4 excess spaces on site for the project. The other thing that this has allowed is in the design change that you will see, we've taken the services aspect of the building from trash removal and package delivery off of Crescent Hill. So now there'd be the services for the building would not be via Crescent Hill. They would be via our driveway off of Crescent Street. So everything would happen that the services to the building and deliveries and move-ins, et cetera, would all occur on that side of the building, as the Traffic Advisory Committee talked about, to get rid of the stresses, if you will, on Crescent Hill with the concerns on that street. So we're excited to share these with you. We've worked pretty hard on this. We've had numerous meetings. Again, we look at this as a working session, so we do seek your input because our goal, I think everybody's goal is to, at the end of the day, to come with a viable, good project as is encouraged by 40B, to work together to deal with issues that are raised. So I think maybe the best way to go about this, Peter, are you able to maybe talk about the architectural aspect of the building now?
Yeah,
Or actually, you know what I might do? Rick, are you ready to go on the deliveries? and
What?
stuff?
Why don't I share the screen? We'll let Peter get into the architecture, and then we'll switch to parking and
Can
deliveries.
you do, Rick, can you do parking and stuff first?
Yep.
Is that- And the reason I want to is Lieutenant Anderson's on, and I know his time's valuable, so I'd like to maybe get to that part of it first while we have him, and then we can talk about architecture afterwards. And he's more than welcome to stay for that, but I don't think that that's really his purview, so we might be able to save him, 15 minutes or half an hour if we get into the layout, the new layout, as you will, if you will, in the parking and the deliveries, et cetera. Is that okay, Rick?
Yeah, if I can get permission to share without.
This is
Causing
always an
some-
adventure.
You're right.
I was afraid to ask.
Yeah, well, let's see. I got the share screen up, but I'm,
Amy's gonna have to guide you.
yeah, I know. This gets fun.
Jim, on the share button, is there a right, if you go to the right side of it, is there an arrow that goes up, a separate arrow?
Yeah, my problem is it's between my mouse and my computer in time frame. When I click the close button, it takes a few seconds, like a minute, basically, to dump it or get rid of it. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with this thing. So complications. I gotta get rid of this board. Maybe you guys can talk while I play.
Yeah, it's okay.
PC, this PC, UBS, UBS. Hosted attendees.
I think if you go to participants, you might be able to make Rick a co-host.
And I think if you go to participants and right click on me, you can make me host.
Make host.
See how we did. Nope.
Like I said, it takes a few minutes. Okay. You got
Oh,
it.
there we go. Yeah, just came up. There we go. Okay, this should look fairly familiar to everyone. So let me start on the first, what I'm going to call the street level, which is coming in off of Crescent Hill. This is very similar to what we've seen in the past. Not much change here. We've got a total of 27 parking spaces on the first floor level, with most of our handicap spaces located on this level as well, with the building access being right here. If I swing up to here, as Brian mentioned, we are now a 42 unit project, which yields 66 spaces required for the less than 2 bedrooms or fewer, 10 spaces for more than 2 bedrooms, which is a total of 66 spaces. We're providing, as I said, 27 spaces on the upper level. We're providing 3 spaces on the lower level, which I'll explain in a minute. There's 2 of them down the bottom of the driveway on Crescent Street and 1 off of Crescent Hill. And then the lower level includes 40 spaces. So again, coming in off of Crescent Hill Street at the street level is access to these 27 spaces. We go down the driveway and enter the lower level, which is in this area here. These are the 40 spaces. Some of these spaces you see with the C's located in them are compact spaces. They're 8.5 by 18 instead of 9 by 18. Access to this level will be through here, 24-foot minimum wide aisles, 24-foot minimum wide aisles, and access to the rear over here. For deliveries and for trash pickup, there is a trash room that is located in this area here with recycling bins that are located over here. These will both be wheeled out through the garage door to a trash truck that will back down this driveway. It's fairly flat back here. They'll be wheeled out, emptied, and put back in. Both the recycle bins put back here and the compactor put back in the trash room. There's a package room located in this area here where the Amazon truck or what have you the Amazon truck will be able to drive down this driveway, back in here and drive out. They'll have access from this outside door here into the package room, which will be accessible from the interior for the residents of the building. That's essentially the way the parking, trash, and delivery work.
So,
Peter, I don't know.
so
Okay,
if the question is egress from the stairway through the package room and out,
No, it's into the garage.
is that a secure direction?
So what Rick misspoke, for the packages, the truck will come in, he'll access here, he will not have access through that door. So he just can come in through here and then,
this door right here, right?
yeah, that's right.
For the packages?
For the packages, yeah,
But my point being is the egress from the stairwell
yeah.
is through the garage, out the garage door or out some door?
Out the garage door at this point. Had the code consultant look at that as well.
You have or haven't?
I have had him look at it.
Okay, all right.
You bring up a good question that I didn't ask, but if I need to provide a man door there, and I may need to, but access into the garage is acceptable.
Okay,
Into the garage acceptable.
what's the fire separation between that and the units, like 2 hours?
Yeah, yep,
Okay, so it's a different security level as far as fire is concerned.
correct.
Okay,
And we've talked with the Pacellis about using concrete planks in these garage decks, so they're gonna be pretty substantial.
the trash containers that are along that back wall, they're exposed to the exterior, or are they?
They're inside the garage. Those are the recycling bins.
They're enclosed in that little hallway or whatever?
No, they're open to the parking space. It's all wide open.
I guess the dotted line is the building above, right?
Correct.
Right,
Which
The
also
solid-
matches the wall of building below down here.
And the solid line is the property line?
This is the property line here.
And so what's over the top of that?
The building above and the building below match right here.
Okay, so so just between the property line and dotted line, there's a ceiling,
There's nothing.
concrete ceiling?
Between the property line and the building is earth
It's outdoors.
It's outdoors.
outside the building. Yes,
So then the dotted line is a physical wall.
it's the building above. That's correct. Yep.
Okay, all right,
And building below. They're one and the same in this case.
yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Can we, this is what level? This is the
Lower level.
lower level. Can we go back to the upper level, please?
Okay. So those bins are located basically right here on the level below,
Is that open to below?
separated by a stripe. Yep. Is it
Oh.
open to below? No.
Oh, okay. So there's actually space beyond the parking there for whatever.
Correct.
Am I right?
yes.
Okay. And there's more storage there as well. Okay. So the convenience of anybody visiting here, I assume, is the fact that they can drive into the garage on either end and park. So is visitors parking going to be designated? Or is it just anybody that comes just uses what they want?
Well, we anticipate that we'll designate visitor parking.
All right, and the occupants parking will be designated in somehow or other?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I reconfirm, I believe it was said that the parking is part of your rent. You have parking space designated to you as part of your rental unit.
Joe and Steve, can you clarify that or answer that?
Yeah, we actually took that one step further. I think we were gonna do all the one bedrooms, even though we're allotted 1.5 parking spaces, we were gonna actually designate one parking spot for every one bedroom.
And then the rest of it's whatever you got to do to find a space, basically. I mean, like, is the first floor going to be designated parking and the lower level is going to be, you know, random parking, basically, for that half car that's somewhere? Bunch of half cars.
The idea right now is to have every unit to have at least one parking space. And then the overage would be contributed to, visitor and surplus.
And assuming some of the cars will have some of the units will have 2 cars. So, I mean, it's not convenient. It's not convenient to park on the streets because there are a very limited amount of parking space and a lot of signs. So the more convenient it becomes for people to park here, and people are lazy, they don't like to walk. And the more people that drive in here, basically, and the parking's available, as long as they don't have to go, you know, out in one door and out the other because they can't find parking on that level. I guess the thing would be that maybe the parking for guests is on the lowest level, so they never get to see Crescent Street. That's only used by tenants. So whenever you're a guest, you know where the parking's going to be. It's going to be on the lowest level, and it's going to be off Crescent and not off Crescent Hill. All the rest of the spaces theoretically in that Crescent Hill entry would be designated.
Yeah, I think, Steve and Joe, I mean, we can talk about that. And again, this is why it's a working session, because I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Good
Yeah,
idea, because,
agree.
you know, one of the things that Lieutenant Anderson had raised was his concerns would be visitors go in off of Crescent Hill, they can't find a space, so they pull out and then they park on Crescent Hill. So, you know, if we basically say that, you know, visitor parking is not on the Crescent Hill entrance, you know, only residents that go in there are going to have a space that they know they can park.
I agree.
It reduces the confusion of people, you know, people that come and go all the time. They're going to know how to react on Crescent Hill and getting out. People that just guess are better off, because they're coming and going at times, better off to go to that lower parking level and come off Crescent, period.
So we're better off the unit's second car, if needed, it would be on the lower level.
Depending on maybe this one's all designated. Maybe this level's designated with a few others designated on a lower level. I don't know how your count works out that way.
Right.
And that's something you'll have to figure out. And then, I would suggest that you actually work that all out before you come to the board and
Yep.
say, here's our thinking, and let the board react to it. But to me, just looking at, that's the best way to handle it. And, you know, the people that live in the building all the time are more used to what the neighborhood's like. And if otherwise, basically someone that wants to drive around the neighborhood and park elsewhere, there's no room for them. So you provide enough room for them, they'll come and they'll walk, and it will be easy for them. Otherwise, it just becomes difficult for anybody that tries to come here and park on the street. There is no parking.
I agree.
All right, what's next? Amy, anything to say? Did I lose her? She get on another train?
Must have gone in the tunnel because I don't see her on the list anymore.
We should wait a
Really?
minute. She'll be back.
Yeah.
Is she waiting to be admitted, Jim?
What's that?
Check your participant screen. She's waiting to be admitted.
I don't see anybody.
Usually it will say, you know, someone's waiting to be admitted. Rick, you're a co-host.
Yeah, Rick, your co-host.
Oh, sorry, hold on a second.
Yeah, Rick's probably got my control at this point.
Mr. Just click the participant button, Rick, and see if there's anyone up top waiting to be admitted.
Jim, if I may,
Yeah,
the other thing that's, this one doesn't show, but I mean, we added bike racks to each floor also.
in the garage.
Yes.
Yeah. It's actually shown there on the lower level. I can see it.
Do you have any idea how many racks you're talking about or how many bikes you're talking about?
I think we had enough for 10 in each floor.
Okay, so 20, yeah.
Yeah, I think close to that. There they are.
Oh, yeah, I see them in the back. Yep.
And also, Steve and Joe would like to add some electrical charging stations in designated areas there.
Well, that's inside the building.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
really a problem as long as it's not wiping out I don't know, you have to figure out how to handle the parking in that space because people, these cars don't charge up that fast. So
Yeah,
you plug in and you walk away and make some soup upstairs and you forget it and go to bed. And next thing you know, someone's lost a parking space somewhere.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, and then, the other thing I'll just add too is we are, Joe and Steve are enthusiastic about providing security for the garage and the cameras in the garage and all around the building. Chief Scory recently kind of gave a dissertation of what he's looking for in buildings like this, and they're gonna meet that.
Yeah, I remember that little.
You remember that, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe while we're waiting for Amy, Lieutenant Anderson might sort of chime in here since he's got a limited window if he's concerned, how he thinks.
Yeah, Jim, no, I agree with you. I think that the lower level would be something good to explore for the visitor parking, especially if there was a sign on Crescent Street that said visitor parking and directed them to the lower level.
Yeah, and I think the same sign should be issued on Crescent Hill to say there's no parking for visitors,
That's a possibility too, and I think that something that I'd have to run by the rest of the committee is the possibility and the legality of having a left turn only sign when coming out of the Crescent Hill side of that parking garage. That way, a couple of residents brought up the point that Crescent Hill isn't a cul-de-sac, so if you take a right out of that garage looking for more on-street parking, you basically wind up in a narrow dead end with no real easy availability to turn around. So I think if we could have a left turn only coming out of that garage, that would definitely help reduce some of those instances. Signage, like you mentioned, visitor parking to direct them to. I feel that if they entered and exited from Crescent Street and stayed away from the hill, it would reduce some of the concerns from the residents of having people driving around aimlessly throughout the neighborhood and down their street and kind of creating a bottleneck at the end of Crescent Hill. So I think anything we can do to keep everything off of Crescent Hill, which I think judging by what I'm seeing today, I think is a pretty good faith effort to try to keep the deliveries and some of the other services, package deliveries and visitors and things like that onto that access driveway on the Crescent Street side. I guess my question is how wide is that driveway there?
What are we talking about? Crescent Hill?
Yeah, no, Crescent Street, the one where the packages would be delivered and to reach the lower level.
20 feet.
20 feet. Okay. So no, I think that's definitely that's a good effort on their part to try to address a lot of the residents' concerns, about deliveries, visitors, things like that. My initial concern was having Amazon trucks and UPS and things of that nature stacked up on Crescent Street. Because if they're stacked up on Crescent Street, it's already narrow as it is, and it's going to really create a nightmare there and could create some accidents. So I think in pretty short order, the delivery drivers would know that access driveway is where all the deliveries are. So I like that. I like getting all of the services off of Crescent Street and Crescent Hill. I would just have to run that by the committee as far as signage and what we can and can't do on that end for left turn only out of the Crescent Hill side of the garage, visitor parking signage, things of that nature to try to keep people flowing to that driveway. And Jim, to your point, I think that yeah, you're right. If people live there, they're going to know that Crescent Hill's a dead end, so you can't go down that end, and they're going to know how to navigate. Whereas visitors aren't, and that's where I think some of my bigger concerns were. Delivery drivers, visitors, visiting nurses, things like that. I think could have the most negative impact. And if we do things to address that, like that access driveway, like possibly having the visitor spaces all be on that lower level, so everything is coming in from the Crescent Street side as opposed to Crescent Hill, that would definitely alleviate some of my concerns with this development. So I think, without speaking to the rest of traffic advisory, I think that a few of my concerns are definitely addressed that I had at our meeting on May 21st. We'd have to look into a little bit more as far as, like I said, signage. There were a few things that came up about sightline distances and things like that. But in terms of parking and just the overall flow, my big question to Brian and the developers was, what can we do to try to alter this to maybe keep everything off of Crescent Hill? And I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, by moving the people that want to come and visit, they're going to be the most confused cattle of anybody, basically. And some of them are going to go up the hill thinking it's a through road, and it's not. And then they're going to have to back around to somebody's driveway and bump around up there for a while and turn themselves around, whereby the people that live there are going to get it pretty quick. Even if they don't pay attention to signage, they're going to just be wasting their time with their groceries going up the hill and turning around, come back down again. So so they'll learn pretty quick. Other people best off to keep them down on the other level. Absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing that I would, the concern that I can anticipate is the few available spaces on Crescent Hill. Some of the residents sent me pictures of, kind of a normal day in the life of somebody on Crescent Hill. And, it included everything from double parking and pretty much clogging up the whole roadway to people having to dig out and claim their spots during a snowstorm and things like that. So their question is going to be, what can they do to preserve their ability to park in front of their own house? And that's something I think we'd have to run past the rest of the committee and get some public participation on, whether we explore a resident parking only system. That has some challenges too, because then you can't have visitors on your street. So where are they going to park? They'd have to park off street in your driveway. But it's just something that I can anticipate coming up from the residents. So I think we'd need to have another traffic advisory committee meeting on that and what we could do to try to mitigate some of that, residents from this development or the area parking on Crescent Hill. And
well, I'm not sure who's parking up there now. I mean, there certainly is, over the period of time I spent down there, basically each day looking at the parking situation there and across the street, is it seemed to be the same party. So obviously they live in the neighborhood. Right. And the fact it's only one-sided, everything's marked no parking except for two zones, a section on Crescent Hill and a section on Crescent Street diagonally from this project. So there is no room. And it's, and I think pretty much at this point, the people that live there basically claim the spots because they need them. And if anybody's double parking there, it's more because they've got a guest or something else. They have their own problem up there with adequate parking. And you can't really park the other side of the street in Crescent Hill because it just narrows the street down to one lane, and then you got a fire truck problem, so.
There's no parking on the other side of the street anyways.
No, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Said there's only one side of parking, and if it was to turn into just somebody like say a plumber, he parks across the street, but he's going to do some work for somebody on the street. He turns the street into a one-laner, unless he drives like some people do around here, drives up on the sidewalk and parks, and even that's not legal. So
I think the idea is just right. You know, speaking from experience, I live in a multifamily building similar to this, and our visitor parking is very specific. And I find myself, anytime someone's coming to visit me, I tell them exactly where to go to park. And I think that that'll be the same for the people in this building. When they're expecting a visitor, they're going to say, pull down the Crescent Street driveway. If you pull on the Crescent Hill, you won't have access into the building.
Yeah, and some
That's
signage
just
on
how
the,
it works.
some signage on the street that says guest parking or something, basically just to reinforce it at the
Yep.
same time. So one side says no parking for guests, and another one says parking for guests, and whatever. But it will work. It certainly will help and make it better than has been to date. And the fact that there's more spaces now makes it even more convenient for people to just drive in out of the rain, out of the snow, walk right to the elevator, go right up to wherever you're going, basically. It's so much better than parking on the street. And when you come for your friend's house, then you got to shovel your car off if you haven't been shoveled in by the snowplow at the same time. So I think just making it more convenient for all of us who are lazy and don't like to walk too far, this is very convenient in my mind.
Jim, you bring up a good point about the covered parking, because like you said, why would you park on the street on the wrong side to let somebody out when you could just pull into the garage and be out of the elements? So that's actually a good point too. It would kind of eliminate some of that, because if they live there, they're gonna say, no, pull in the garage. It's gonna be it's covered. It's gonna be closer. It's easier, and let me right up by the stairwell.
Right. No, I'll come down and meet you or whatever and help you bring the bags up or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah. Did we find Amy? Anybody?
She's on.
She's on?
Yep, she's been on for a little while.
No. Amy. She's not listening.
She's on.
Yeah.
All right. Peter,
Yes.
you want to go? I think
Yeah.
Rick's done with his little show and tell.
So Rick has my plans. You do, Rick, right? Embedded in here as well?
Sure do. I think we've already talked about the lower level, right?
We did. I just wanted to say, Jim, here I think just repositioning those spaces and getting the trash room about twice the size of what it was, that was a big move in from where we were before. Plus we moved it all down to the lower level from the upper.
You know what? I get it now. It's on a curbing inside the garage up against the wall.
Correct.
You got it.
That's right.
I wasn't getting that. That line looked like another wall to me.
No,
and
no.
The front of the car curbing.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. I just woke up. Thank you.
Okay. You can go up to, go, that's good. So here, Jim, what we did is we took the lower right unit and turned it into an amenity. So here we thought we'd have more like a community room and still maintain a bathroom, a small kitchenette, a conference room, exterior access to some type of garden where people can use. I think Joe would like to put a bocce court, but we haven't gotten that far. But we'll see. But something that the people in the building get to use. So we've used that space, eliminated a 2-bedroom unit at that level, and
So this looks like a corridor with a bunch of doors in the garage. So somehow or other, not to tell you how to design this, but somehow or other that entry in there ought to be a little more glorious and a little more private for the people that live on that corridor from the public side of things. So I don't know whether there's a secondary set of doors in that corridor going to the end, which
yeah, as you say, maybe I don't know if you can see my mouse, but maybe the whole area right where the 3 doors are can all become part like a lobby.
something.
So you exit. I think it would work well. You exit from the garage into a lobby and then into those units down low.
Something that just it makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. Okay.
Well,
Upper level, what's really the first level of living, the big changes here are just what became 2 bedrooms, what became 1 bedroom. And just playing with that so that we kept the counts right. So there's been some give and take in sharing the rooms. I also had to do this stairway that sits towards the back from the front building to the back, had to move a couple of feet to get it to work with the parking better. So that adjustment was done. Go to the next plate, Rick, please. These levels, as you know, Jim, are very repetitive. I think one move to mention is if you can just pull the page up a little bit, Rick. I wanted to look down near the elevator area. That section of the building, when we get to elevation, just to the right of the elevator, I brought the building forward 12 inches. You can see the change there. And I did it to create another vertical break in the building. With the last time we met, Amy kept referencing that this part of the building in the facade was very flat. So I broke that, and I'll show it to you when we get to the elevation. When we get to the top floor now, Rick. The top floor, you jump, there we are. Go back in. We had a unit that sat way out here to the right. Actually had 2 units. We cut it down to 1 unit, cut it in approximately half, kept it in about 30 feet. There's still a unit there. It's a 2-bedroom unit, but it is not 2 units, and it's not sitting out to the far right, so the wall reduces itself. We also kept a patio or deck towards the front and held that unit back, the unit that sits in the front corner. Now, if we go to the front elevation, keeping amenity up on that level too in the back. You can see what I was referencing if you look at the front tower that we've had all along. These are now windows, all the access is out towards Crescent Hill, but there's an additional tower now to the right. It drops from the main one, but it helps break the facade and breaks that, what Amy was calling the flat area. The other units that remain in the back are way back, I think invisible from Crescent Street, I'm sorry. You'd have to be way down near Wakefield Tire. And then we also decided to carry the stone veneer on the full foundation in this area as well. There'll be landscaping there too, but bringing the stone around. Go to the next elevation, Rick. This is the Crescent Hill elevation to the left. Again, maintaining stone on the garage facade. The building in the back is lower. We talked about that to keep it more consistent with the neighbors on Crescent Hill. And you can see the entrance at the porch in the front. Okay, Rick, the next one. Also, Jim, I took I had tried to put balconies up in the mansard, but I removed those. So balconies don't happen up on the upper level. They only happen in the second and third levels of the building. This is the rear of the building. Some of those units in the back lower building actually have access right out onto grade. So that little alley that kind of happens behind the building can be accessed footpath to some of the lower units have their own doors that enter in. And the right elevation is next, Rick. And here's the right. Here I drew in the lower parking garage. You can see the door to the parking garage. As we just discussed, I may end up putting a man door in here as well. The next overhead door is the package delivery room. I think this helps see that this front section of the building, excuse me, is forced, well, it's 3.5 stories, I think, because it's kind of buried below the ground. But the units that we talked about earlier that we maintained up on the 4th floor sit way back behind this facade, this mansard roof, and even their decks are hidden behind the mansard. And that's those units up in the upper middle section of the building. You can see the rear building sits low. So I think looking back from where we were in, I believe it was in June It's the massing of the upper level, the remassing of the front facade. I think those are the major changes that happened on the elevation of the building, and also the reduction of the units down to the 42.
So right in front of me, I see the appendage I wanted to see disappear
Yeah,
on that upper floor. And it really hasn't moved from, it's more defined than it was in
yeah.
relationship to that side. And I'm not sure how to think about it at this moment. And the, I guess I'm wondering where, that was one of those units that was going to disappear and we were going to get parking spaces from it. It hasn't disappeared. Some magical thing has happened basically where in fact we've gained extra parking spaces. So how did we get extra parking spaces?
So inside the building, sometimes we had, say, 2 1-bedrooms, we got 1 2-bedroom.
No, I mean, hold on, we didn't gain parking spaces. We had 70 when we met with you in June, we still had 70. We lost units, which reduced our requirement to 66.
Well, in the total though, you still gain parking spaces. I mean, usable spaces, not less undesignated spaces, however you want to call it. All right, they're extra spaces. Am I correct?
Yeah, we have 4 extra spaces beyond what's required in zoning.
Right, right. So
That's all because our required parking dropped,
Yeah, because we lost units.
okay, all right.
lost 3 units.
Well, then, then you've got less occupants in the building, therefore less parking demand, but the parking count is still there. So yeah, it's either subtraction or addition, but it's still there. We've got more parking, free and open parking spaces, so to speak,
Right,
within this. So
correct.
I just want to know how it happened because I guess the thing about this one unit, it's always been sort of in the back of my neck here, is how does it look in 3D? How does it stand out? Is it sitting far enough back so that it's not an issue? Certainly it seems like it's sitting back far enough from Crescent, but is it sitting back enough from a butter?
Yeah.
And at the same time, not screw up the intent of having this step up the hill. So I'm still.
If I may, Jim,
That unit hasn't gone away in my mind and it hasn't gone away from the job.
if I may, Jim, even if
Sure.
you lost that unit, how deep is that unit, Peter?
No, it's gonna pop back to my CAD.
Yeah, 20 feet. If you lost that unit, you still have the same look.
Oh, you
Of the-
still have the same look. It's just that it would be back. I understand because you still got
Yeah.
that link going to the back of the building.
Right, now you'd have a hallway. You'd be
Yeah.
looking at a hallway wall.
Exactly, which is kind of stupid, quite frankly.
That's why we
But-
set it back 30 feet.
Yeah, and I understand all that. I understand the nature of the architecture and how best to handle it, but it sort of cuts through what I was trying to do, which was more about massing as opposed to where the units were. So in the massing concept, basically, it didn't matter whether it was a hallway or a unit, basically. It mattered that it was gone. So I have to settle myself as to whether it's worth having there just to see if it screws up the appearance of the massing, which is all about make sure there's very positive look as it steps up the street, basically.
I
Now,
think the only way-
Others may, we may hear from others basically that want to take everything off the top floor. I'm not there. The board can be there, but I'm trying to look at all sorts of things here all at once and, in my own mind, basically be able to sit here and talk positively and negatively about it. So,
No, I hear you. And we thought that was the best solution, taking one unit, deleting the unit there, turning that one sideways and setting it back as far as we could and still have a half decent sized unit.
well, I might say it's better than it was.
Yeah.
All right. I guess a little bit further study three-dimensionally in that area to convince me, I guess, at this point that works for the massing of the building. But you know, like I say, others, for the massing of the building, others would say take the top roof off entirely. So that's a different discussion entirely, and I'm not there.
We're not there either, and we're not going there, to be honest with you. So, you know, that on our end, that's just a non-starter.
Yeah, I mean, I like the appearance of the building. I think it's aesthetically pleasing in relationship to what was in the town back in the day. And there certainly was buildings right on Main Street that had this sort of architecture. There's one down the street that's got this sort of architecture. So, you know, having something that's historical in appearance as opposed to just throw up a box, I think is much more pleasing and controlling, basically, and sets sort of an appearance for other places later on that might bring back some of the appearance of the town from the past. But anyway, that's my historical side, I guess.
We might have to jump off at 5, but I just want to see if there was anything else that anybody had as far as parking or traffic goes. I think I have a list of things that I want to bring back to traffic advisory from this meeting here. I think there was some good discussion, and there's definitely a little bit more work to do, but I definitely like the direction, and I like where we're at so far.
Well, we certainly want to hear back from you to basically before any formal next zoning meeting. I don't know how much more we can, you know, work on this one now, because we aren't coming out of this with, I mean, I think we're coming out with something that's, you know, move stuff around because of comments that we've made. There's a few other things here, but it's not going to move much further basically before it's ready for the board. And if you have any comments, I suggest, you know, you send them along to us so that we can, I don't know that we need to address them here, but, or it can be sent along to them and they can address it. And then when they come to the board, they've addressed it.
Yeah, I think our next move will be to have a meeting with some public input and to bring some of this to that meeting, along with some of the questions that I have, and then any other unresolved issues or questions that the rest of the committee had, as far as, you know, the engineer's questions and concerns, things like that. So I think that's probably our next step, and then at that point we'll see if we're comfortable enough and have enough to produce a memo to the Board of Appeals either way, with concerns that we still have outstanding, or you know, changes that have been made that we're satisfied with.
When do you think you'd have that meeting?
This month is it's pretty tough to get everybody together,
Yeah.
And even into August, but I can try to see if we can have a meeting in August at some point.
Yep.
That'd probably be the earliest. I'd say mid to late August.
Yeah, because we only have one meeting ourselves basically in August and July. So, and you know, the next full schedule will be September.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, I hear someone in the background around you. Any comments?
I just had a quick question. I don't know if you guys can hear me at all. I'm on a train and the Wi-Fi is terrible.
We can hear
No,
you.
we can hear you.
You can?
Yep.
Okay. So I just had a quick question. I don't know if Lieutenant Anderson is still on. I might have missed what he said. When she comes out of, when they come out of the garage onto Crescent Street, were you saying that they take a left turn onto Crescent Street or a left turn onto Crescent?
On Crescent Hill, they take a left turn.
Yeah, Amy, I wanted to make sure that if it's legal to maybe have a sign when you exit the driveway from, or exit the garage rather, onto Crescent Hill, that your only option is to take a left. That way people aren't going down Crescent Hill to find out that it's a dead end. So some type of signage there where everybody coming out of that garage goes out to Crescent Street, as opposed to making a right-hand turn thinking that they can get somewhere else, or that it isn't a dead end.
And I don't know whether you disappeared at the time, but what we said was that all the guest parking would be coming out onto Crescent Street out of the lower level of the garage. So there's no confusion. They don't go in that other section of garage. Yeah, they enter the lower section. There's designated parking for them. That's where everybody's been told to go. And they'll be on the upper level. It will be pretty much designated parking. So there'll be no guest parking at all there. And that seemed to work for the lieutenant as well. I don't know whether she disappeared again.
Okay, thank you. And then, oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, sure.
Oh, I don't, okay. I'm gonna have to watch this recording because I can't hear anything.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. And then, so I know we had discussed it before about with the Envision project, with those streets coming up onto Crescent Street. Do we know if those are gonna be one ways or not?
Yeah, that it hasn't happened yet. I mean, that's what's proposed, is turning, Princess and, if you're talking about Princess and Center Street. But just, we're not there yet, so nothing's come before traffic advisory to make that change.
Okay. I know it's hard to determine with the what ifs, if they're all coming in, it's hard.
I mean, that's probably our biggest challenge, right? Is at least on traffic advisory is looking ahead into the future, and we can't do it, unfortunately, with so many different developments, and things change constantly, and some are approved, some aren't. So it's definitely tough, but you want to try to look into the future and see how this might be impacted by that change. And I think it's tough for our engineers too to try to get a good picture of where things are going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. And, the town's looking at doing an overall traffic study, but it just doesn't account for all the what ifs, and there's quite a few.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Brian, anything else from you or Peter or Rick?
No. What do you think, Jim? Do we kind of bring this working plan back to the entire board? Or do you want to have another meeting and have us do some 3D stuff here with the subcommittee? What do you want to do? Because I think, Peter, is that something you can possibly put together?
Yeah, I think we could do it. I mean, I don't know that we can't do photo real, but we definitely could do massing model level.
What's going to help you with Jim on that, Jim, with your decision on that elevation? What do you need? Because I'd like to provide you to the subcommittee what you need, because I think, you're on the subcommittee, you're the architect on the board. So I think the board is going to say, what do you think about it? And I'd rather take this opportunity. We've got 3 weeks to get you what you need, that we can come back to a meeting and kind of go through it.
I guess, given the time frame, is I would say let's get a massing model done of that upper level. I don't think that we left anything undone elsewhere at the moment. You've certainly followed up on the issues that we had before, and they seem to be resolved in a better manner. I think also, basically, you need to look at the parking numbers, at least momentarily, as to where things be, particularly when you go before the board to say, these whatever parking spaces are for guests, and these are for the designated, like indicated, designated units basically here, and so forth and so on. So I think a little bit of tuning up there, more for presentation to the board than even to me. But it clarifies the items that might be concerning to somebody, or at least they'll clearly understand it. And they'll understand the trash cans are on the curb line. So, for me, it is the massing. It's still the massing. It changed quite a bit, but it's still, the last element of that is still concerning to me. And the only way I can look at it personally is to look at it in 3 dimension.
Peter, is that something you can do?
Yeah, we can do that.
I think then, I would suggest within the next we've got time, we've got till August 18th. Let's have another committee meeting, Jim, that we can present, because I think we're going to get back to the board and you're going to have an issue with that. And, and they're going to look at us saying, well, why didn't you get the subcommittee information they needed to render an opinion on it? And you wasted 3 weeks not doing that. So let's do it.
I'm fine with that.
So, do we want to try to, do we want to try to pick that time and date now when we're going to do it? Because we're all here. If Amy can still hear, there's, some members of the public that are watching that might be interested in that date. So maybe we can people probably have vacations, so maybe we can try to figure that out.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Of course. That's why we're here.
And I know the Lieutenant Anderson was saying something about the signage. What if we did the signage on the door before it opened, before they exit?
Oh, that's something to be discussed. I think the goal is not to have people pull up the street. And if it's on the door, they're already gonna be up there. So.
No, inside left turn only.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's something that Lieutenant Anderson has to vet with the entire Traffic Advisory Committee. Anyways, Joe, and then how we're gonna handle that, I think we might want to sign outside, but I think to have it inside the door will probably be a good idea too.
Okay. I didn't know if it was a law thing, have to go through, there's rules about putting
Yeah,
signs up.
that's for Lieutenant Anderson and the TAC to deal with, so
Okay, all right.
we're at that
But
point.
there's nothing wrong with us putting a sign inside of our building encouraging the people to take a left-hand turn only, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
A rule of the building, left-hand turn only.
Yeah.
I need something posted outside to make it enforceable to ticket people if they violate it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, so Jim, can we maybe try to pick another date? I mean, Peter, how long do you need to do that?
I mean, just guessing it's getting it to be fed in, I'd say 2 weeks would be good to block. Where would that put us? Where's that date wise?
Well, I mean, 2 weeks, so that's on week
Is
of
the-
August 9th, which is fine,
Okay.
which is fine.
Yeah, and
Can I ask one more question, Jim?
yeah,
Are you looking for, they're gonna do the 3D thing for you to delete that unit and show, so you can see the comparison?
that's easy enough to do, quite frankly.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know if that was something, if we're getting the same look with only, a hallway.
I guess my question would be, Jim, if that unit was not there, would we still want to do the 3D to look at the building?
No,
Okay.
it's really the fact it's there, and I understand it's a corridor and architecture, maybe it's a good thing that's there. Because things move around quite a bit, as you well know.
Yeah.
It was a mass, it was the massing that I was dealing with, and then it became a unit. And it still was the massing, but so now looking at this as a unit, and it's changed as far as it's shrunk, it's pulled back. I'm not sure, and I know that was going to be clipped and other sorts of things, but at this point, I need to see how this fits in with everything else or doesn't fit in. And, I understand the desire to actually use that corridor for something. And it may make sense that's the best use of that area. But, my whole point is basically from the sides and the front. And we're going downhill on the front. Is how much of this do we actually see, and does it really make that much difference in the appearance? And I think it's from the neighbor more appearance than it is from anybody else. And it's only one neighbor, maybe.
Yep.
So, if you can clip it on and clip it off in the 3D image, I think that would be good, which means that corridor basically has to have the same appearance of everything else. It'd be, gambrel type of roof basically along there with windows.
Right. Understood. Okay.
Yeah, you want to see a 3D model both ways, Jim. That's what Joe's saying. That way.
Yeah.
So you can determine what's more appropriate. So is the week of August 9th, Jim, is that something that you're away, or Amy, or
I'm open. Amy? Amy, I see you there.
I'm good that week, I think, except for Monday.
Okay. So shoot for Tuesday.
okay, so
The
same
10th.
time, 4 o'clock, it'll be Tuesday, August 10th at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay, that way the public knows, and Jim, you'll have Gail post it, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we need Lieutenant Anderson there, right? Because we're going to talk more architecture.
Particularly if he's not going to have any meeting or discussion with the rest of TAC. And that can be just as easily brought up at the zoning meeting.
Yeah, Amy, I think Amy was trying to say something.
Went through a tunnel. Amy, well, we know that she can't meet Monday, so Tuesday's working.
Yeah, and we'll say 4. If she has a problem with that, Jim, when you finally can hear from her, we can be flexible, and you'll post the time.
Yeah, I don't think normally it's a 3:30, 4 o'clock type of thing is her window, I
Yeah.
believe. Well, anyway,
Okay.
so without anything else to talk about, I guess we should close the meeting.
And Jim, just before you do that, just I know the 40B consultant that the board hired wasn't able to make this because he was on vacation.
Yeah, and the board certainly is going to want to be hearing back from him, I'm sure. For that matter, I'd like to hear back from him. I was expecting actually to hear from him.
Yeah.
And maybe he can make the 10th, but then he's got a lot of catch up to do, I would think, and a lot of questions to ask. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have that catch up happen here than us spend 2 hours in a ZBA meeting, basically spoon feeding him information that's already available, basically. So
That's why I
It's like
wanted to make sure that he was invited for the 10th.
yeah, I mean, I've offered the same thing to talk to him if he's got any questions, so bring him up to speed. That's still standing offer at this point. All right. Anything else?
No,
Nada. Okay. So with
Oh.
that,
Jim, real quick, I missed the time of the meeting for the 10th,
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. Okay, and then who were you just speaking of?
The 40B consultant, if you remember, that came.
Oh, yeah.
So we would have liked him here, but he's on vacation. So maybe he can show up on the 10th, basically, and he can ask questions, we can give him answers without spending a whole lot of time with him doing the same thing in a board meeting. I think I got that across. All right, so.
I heard the most of it.
All right, so with that, I'm going to close the meeting for the subcommittee for 44, 46, 48 Crescent Street as of 5/14 on, what is today? Today is,
27.
thank you, July 27th. Amy
Yes.
and Jim, yes. All right, thank you all.